Christmas, everybody. It's slightly
Late.
not really Christmas anymore, is it?
No.
I don't really feel Christmassy after Boxing Day, to be honest. It's just that weird.
Yeah,
it's a weird period now between Christmas and New Year.
It's like what day it is. Yeah.
I don't know, but I do know that there has been a Doctor Who Christmas special for the first time in 6 years. Woo!
Yay!
I had fun. We are, obviously, if you've not really guessed, I mean, you probably have, but we are reviewing The Church on Ruby Road, written by Russell T Davies, directed by Mark Tonderoy, and broadcast on the 25th of December, 2023.
Yes.
I had fun watching this.
Oh, I really enjoyed this. It's bloody lovely to have the Doctor back and not have to wait a while for them to have that, oh, okay, they are the Doctor moment. Like you get with Capaldi and definitely with Jodie.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely got that. He's just instantly charismatic. Should we just get into the pre-title sequence?
Yeah.
Because that was very atmospheric and it set the mood quite well. It felt very Christmassy with the snow and the Christmas hymns, carols, and, you know, the Doctor doing the opening narration. And we don't get too much of it. It's sort of just a bit of an opening narration to set the scene and then bam, straight into the titles.
Yeah.
Logo's still not been fixed though, but there we are. We'll just keep complaining about that until it is fixed. I just think it looks terrible. But anyway, we get introduced properly to Millie Gibson as Ruby Sunday. She's having a sit-down interview with Davina McCall, obviously as a bit of a... They're trying to be long-lost family. I think it's what the show that Davina McCall's does called.
Yeah, I don't know.
Something like that.
Something where you try and find your family. I think it's mostly if you are adopted.
Yeah, I think it's to do with people who are trying to track their family through like DNA tests and things like that.
Yeah.
To be on record. But it's quite an interesting way to get Ruby's backstory done quite naturally without it being too like, you know, having a conversation with somebody. She's like, oh, gee, isn't it weird that I was, you know, I was banned as a baby on Christmas Eve by this church, blah, blah, blah. And it's that could be really forced and jarring, but this feels quite natural because it's a sit-down interview and it's about Ruby.
Yeah, it's a really nice way to introduce her, to be honest. You get your first little glimpse as well of the goblins up to their hijinks.
Yeah, nicking people's coffee and knocking lights over. And I mean, I don't know how many times I've knocked the lights over in here, to be fair.
Yeah, same with me. It's the goblins, that's what it is. Get out of here, goblins.
But definitely not just clumsy.
No, we can't accept that.
Which is why we've had to start this again, because I unplugged one of the microphones, didn't I? But there's so we get that, and we get a bit of a montage then of sort of Ruby's everyday life. And I, for some reason, it just had, because I was recognising everywhere, I forgot that this wasn't set in Cardiff, because we've got the Golden Cross where Ruby's band are playing, and we have someone that looks oddly like Mrs. Merridew.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the same actress, but if it isn't, it's a very striking resemblance.
Yeah.
And for those of you who can't remember, Mrs. Merridew was Isaac Newton's housemaid. In the pre-credit sequence of Wild Blue Yonder, there's a woman who calls out to the band who looks very similar. And I don't know if that could be something. I mean, there's a few mysteries going forward that these could all be just setting up things for.
Yeah, I mean, Russell loves his breadcrumb trails, doesn't he?
Bit of a slow burn here and there, but that's fine because it keeps it interesting. And yeah, the band seem fun, and then all of a sudden their music is stopped by the goblins unplugging the sound system, I think it is.
Yeah.
And we see the Doctor sort of just keeping an eye on things in his very first outfit that we saw shooting with the orange jumper and the matching coat and trousers and the hat. And it's an alright outfit. It's a bit bland, isn't it?
It's not that.
No, that is lovely.
Yes,
we'll
that is
come on to
gorgeous.
that as it appears. And then, you know, after that, then we see the Doctor is in Prism, or some other undisclosed, unadvertised nightclub.
Yes.
But it's definitely Prism, because we've been there many, many times back in the day.
Yes, we have.
Back in the here, dear. And it was quite unusual to see people stood at the table. I have also been... I had that as a VIP table once. And then it's just a bit bizarre.
Someone was stood in your sick.
How dare you? How dare you slander me like that? I have never been sick on a table. I may have been sick in the toilet, but I was not sick on the table. Slandering me like that on the internet, how dare you? Unbelievable. So then we get the Doctor just, you know, absolutely just vibing to a bit of Hybrid Minds on the dance floor.
Oh, it's great.
Very, very nice looking shot. You know, he's clearly just, the Doctor's just having fun, which is something that we haven't seen for so long now. It's always been, you know, they've been having fun, but there's always that element of sort of...
something else.
Yeah, and I don't want to say baggage, but it basically was. It's the emotional baggage that has now been let go because of the biogeneration. And it was just nice to see him having a laugh, you know?
Yeah.
He's got no reason to be in Prism, and he's just...
He's just there for fun, like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I assume it's to do with him keeping an eye on Ruby and the goblins and all, but who knows? And then after that, then we have a nice little scene where the Doctor, in his second outfit we've seen now, the one we've seen on the dance floor with the yellow vest and the kilt and the
leather jacket.
black leather jacket, which I didn't see. I wasn't that fond of when we saw like the filming pictures, but it looked a lot better in the actual episode, which is why we should stop, leaking things.
Yeah, definitely letting that one go.
Yeah, stop leaking things. Merry Christmas. But that one, you could tell, was definitely filmed a bit later on because Shooty felt a lot more doctory in that, like, just very casually, rather than, but not saying that he's bad later on, he really isn't, but he feels a lot more comfortable in that scene than he does in the rest of the episode, for me personally, because I feel like the rest of the episode he's got this, although his performance is really good and I'm not knocking it at all, there is that sort of element where he's almost like a bit hesitant in a way, like holding back, like he's not quite slipped into the character of the Doctor yet. But this is obviously the first one that he's filmed, and it's going to take, alright, Matt Smith won people over in his first episode, but that wasn't the first one that he filmed.
No.
It takes someone, like, especially a character like the Doctor, that's a very complicated character to get into, and to be able to pull that off straight away is quite unlikely.
Yeah, it gave me David Tennant and Smith and Jones vibe in terms of.
Yeah, that's a good point.
How smooth and just straight to the point he was with Ruby in prison after he caught her.
Wasn't me. I didn't do it for once.
How quick he was with Ruby in when he caught her drink and stuff and said, "Oh, you've been having a lot of bad luck just putting all these different bits together in his head," and then the quick dismissal of ta-da. I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah.
To be honest.
What's interesting is all that scene with the snowman and the police officer and everything, who my dad said it would have been good if that was PC Anley from Torchwood. I thought that would have been a very cool little connection.
Yeah.
That was a note from Disney, because we hadn't seen enough of the Doctor up until, because the main point is obviously where he's on the rooftop, which a lot of people are a bit concerned about in terms of, like, if Disney got, like, creative control, but it's not control, it's not like an order, like you have to put another scene in here.
It was a suggestion.
It's more of going, hey, what about putting another scene here? And they're going, oh, actually, yeah, that's not a bad idea. And I think as long as they've got the ability to say no, and if their note setter picks up on the work, then why not? Go for it. That's one of the benefits of having these sorts of relationships with shows like this and big other companies.
Yeah, because they can always put them in, try them out, and if they don't work, you can take them back out and have them as a deleted scene.
No, exactly. And I think another thing they wanted as well is they wanted a bit of an introduction to the sonic screwdriver, which I don't like.
It's growing on me.
That's fair enough. I get that people like it, and I applaud the fact that they've gone and done something completely different with it. They haven't just stuck to the same sort of.
It's just not for you, really.
It's not for me. I think it looks like a Calpol spoon mixed with a Sky remote. I think what it was as well. Someone pointed out on Twitter that if the colours matched the TARDIS, it would feel a bit more like uniformed in a way, because the colours don't really match anything, and that was a bit. When someone had done like a mock-up of it was like a sort of silver and bronze colour like the TARDIS. I thought that looked really cool, and then the trailer that we get, which we'll talk about in the next video, for next year, there is a small shot where it's been, the colour scheme looks a bit different. It could just be the lighting, to be fair.
Yeah.
But, the design, I think as a toy for kids, it'll be really good, because it's got all these different things where you can, pull these switches and pull that out there. As a toy, I think it'd be great.
For kids, my ass.
Well, I didn't get a 14th Doctor Sonic Screwdriver, did I?
No.
Someone else
did.
Yeah, we know. What was I going to say?
You're talking about the screwdriver.
Yeah. But yeah, for me as a prop and as a sonic screwdriver for the show, it doesn't really work for me. But, it's a minor issue, really. It doesn't really affect my enjoyment of the episode. It's just not for me.
No, that's fair. I mean, that interaction with the police officer was a bit.
It's quite cheesy. It's quite Doctor Who by numbers, It's the Doctor being a bit cheeky. Very reminiscent of when the Eighth Doctor's talking to Gareth in the TV movie. He's like, answer this question on your exam, not this one, blah, blah, blah. It's sort of that. How does he know this? But you just sort of go along with it anyway. I think it's fun. It was the Doctor just having a laugh. And then we get more of an introduction then to Ruby and her family. But before we go on to that, Mark Tonderai, as a director, I'm not sure I like it. The style of it. It's so flatly directed. And there's close-up after close-up after close-up. It switches from I'll direct the next conversation between us two like it was directed by Mark Tonderai, right? Watch. I just think that because it's, like, you're remoting and stuff, but for some reason that needs to be, like, just a close-up on someone's face. And, like, it should have been, like, a wide shot. and things. Like when Ruby's on the phone later on, it's just you can just see like her eyes like that, and it's just why?
Yeah.
There's more scenery to it.
Yeah, you don't need that, to be honest. But
and it's really jarring. It's really jarring because you see like these big long shots, and then all of a sudden camera's there.
Yeah, it's like for suspense stuff, you can understand like a slow build up to that for a shock. Yeah, and then cliffhanger. But
sometimes it works. You can do close-ups, but when it's just when they're having a conversation outside Ruby's flat, it's just bam, 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 and then when they're inside, it's bam, bam, bam.
Yeah,
it's just really, I'm not a fan of it, to be honest. It's very flat. I think the scenes in the nightclub were directed really nicely. That felt really cool and smooth, and there's lots of different angles and stuff. But yeah, that didn't work for me. I'll be honest. All the close-ups and it's all very flat looking. It just doesn't really pop like the specials did.
No, but what did work for me was the introduction to Carla and Cherry Sunday.
I love those two.
Yes.
How, like, Carla just seems so sweet, doesn't she? She's just like, you're amazing. And it's quite nice to just have, we haven't really had a family dynamic with companions for a while, apart from Yaz and her family, but they were very much, comedy relief in a way, weren't they?
Yeah.
Whereas this, they feel like a family unit.
Yeah, and it feels like they're going to have a much more of a role to play in the series than Yaz's family did.
Yeah, well, we know Michelle Greenidge is definitely back, and I'm pretty sure that I've forgotten her name. The one that plays Cherry is back as well.
Yeah, I love Cherry.
She's so funny. Like all of this is going on around her. She's just like, "Will someone just get me a cup of tea, please?" Like it's a big mood.
Yeah. Oh, it's so relatable.
Nothing she wants more is just a cup of tea on a Christmas Eve. Like,
yeah.
Fair enough. But we get the introduction to Carla, who's Ruby's foster mother and adoptive mother in the end, and they sort of emergency fostering another newborn for however long they need to. And there's, the baby gets dropped off, and I love it when they find out the name is Lulubelle, and they're like, "Oh, that's such a terrible name," because it is.
And even the care, the social service work is like, yeah, it is.
It's pretty bad.
It is pretty bad. Someone doesn't think it's pretty bad, but we'll get on to that.
Yeah. So then we get this, and then we hear after Ruby gets a call from Davina McCall, explaining that there's no link to any of Ruby's family. They're not about like biological family. They haven't been able to make any traces or whatever. And this could just happen, or there could be more to it. There's a mystery. And once again, Ruby answers the phone, and all you can really see is literally just her head because it's close-up time again.
Yeah. But then all the while in the background, you can hear on the baby monitor these little voices, which the goblin's just going around to steal Lulubelle. It's a nice little.
It's fun. It's a little fan. It's very fantasy, and I quite like the sort of inclusion of fantasy stuff now that we've had that hint with the salt and everything at the edge of the universe, and that there's more of that to come later on as well. Apparently, has been teased by Russell. But then we get the scene where that Millie, I keep calling it Millie. Ruby grabs the ladder and to try and get after the baby, and the ship starts moving. And then we have the Doctor just running across the rooftops, just hopping over the chimneys. And that whole scene, it was released as a little teaser, and I just thought that felt so Doctor Who to me.
Yeah.
Like, that was where I was really like, oh, yeah, this is going to be good. This is so good. And it's so much fun. And that theme, I know we mentioned it last week, but I love that theme so much.
So good.
And the build of it where he's jumping, bam, 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 and he jumps on the ladder and having a bit of a conversation. And then we get the psychic gloves and the mention of Mavity.
Yes. I think the gloves are pretty cool.
I love the fact that they are just gloves with some lights on.
Yeah.
That's so Doctor Who. They're not anything fancy. They're just woolly gloves with a couple of lights on. Going, yep, these do all the work, so we can do all of this and all of that stuff.
That was awesome, that scene, to be fair. They've done that really well.
It was that sort of scene that made me realise that although this episode isn't too plot heavy, and that's not a bad thing all the time, like something like this for Christmas Day, you kind of want something a bit light and fun. But this episode is purely carried by how good Millie Gibson and Ncuti Gatwa were.
Yeah.
Like, I know I said that he hasn't quite got that doctory thing. Like, for me, if it was like a percentage, I think he's at 95%. There's just something where it hasn't just gone like that just yet. But I think that's just because this is very early on into his time. I think by, I reckon an episode of this new series, it'll be there.
Yeah, I reckon it'll be quite a deep episode as well. Because it usually is. It's usually the hard episodes that that it really pops out.
That was a chair.
I hope so.
But no, they go up the ladder and they're having fun, and it just all gels for me. And how good does that ship look? The Goblin ship.
I love
with
it.
Those big sails and it almost looks like it's got wings, and it's sort of gliding through the. That's where the money's going.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
That looks so good. So then we have the Doctor and Ruby who have been tied up and they're having a bit of a laugh, and there's a bit more of explanation about that these goblins are time riders and they feed on coincidences. And one line that did make me laugh was where they sort of talk about coincidences and they go, why do they pick on Davina McCall? And the Doctor's like, it's just funny, isn't it? Poor Davina.
Yeah.
She's been nearly murked by a Christmas tree.
Yeah, and we kind of felt a bit of Eric when we were watching this. If you haven't seen Sex Education, you shoot
there
that.
There was definitely a bit of Eric where he's on about, the time travel is great.
Yeah, he was offended by Ruby
sassy.
Assuming that the goblins were time travellers, which you can forgive considering this is her first real exposure to that we know of to this world. So we could forgive that, and then the Doctor's like, no, don't you dare put me in the same bed as them.
I quite liked it as well when she's trying to kick the door in, and she's like, that's going to take ages, you can give me a hand. He's like, I'm trying to understand the vocabulary of rope. Which, that was a really cool idea. The idea that, that rope is their sort of version of electronics and stuff, and all you take is to trip a switch and you can get into anything. You don't have to necessarily rely on the sonic screwdriver as much, which is fine, because there were other eras of the show where the sonic would have gone, beep, and the door would have opened.
No, it won't, 'cause Sonic don't do wood.
Yeah, but there would have been. I'm not on about the wood. I'm on about the ropes and everything. It would just cut through the rope. Whereas it's the Doctor using his brain and thinking a bit more and going, right, okay.
Yeah, it's like, oh, okay. Well, this isn't gonna. He tried it. It didn't work, and it just became a flashlight or a torch.
Yeah. Are we going to talk about the Goblin song?
I think we have to.
I don't have a problem with it. It's so much fun. I think the song is terrible. I think it's
it's just a great scene.
I think it's meant to be terrible and cheesy. It's well performed and everything, but it's as a song, I was like, oh no.
It's catchy as hell as well. That's the worst part.
I think because I'd seen that, it was a good chance for me to go up and refill my glass and have another glass of wine. I was like, okay, I've seen this bit before.
But the bit we hadn't seen before, which was a very nice surprise.
I had a feeling that this might happen, where the Doctor and Ruby then sort of not burst into song with him, but it's not even a case of bursting into song in a cheesy way. It's just, let's try and distract them by joining in with what they're doing, so we're going to start singing.
Yeah.
And if you've got two lead actors that, alright, aren't professional singers, but they've not got bad voices by it, they can hold a tune pretty well. Better than me or you can, that's for sure. Insert karaoke clip here, I'm joking.
No. We're not doing that to ourselves.
I like the fact that the Doctor's very much into it. He's doing all the dancing, and then he throws poor Ruby into it, and she's just making it up on the spot, and it shows in a good way.
Yeah.
And then they finally manage to get off the ship and back down to Earth, and then it all gets a bit weird.
Yes. So we go back. They're all happy and stuff. They're thinking they've escaped.
Yeah, Lulabelle has not been fed to the Goblin King, and the Goblin King looked really cool.
Yeah,
seeing as it was all practical and everything.
So Lulabelle's safe for now. She is safe actually from this point on, pretty much.
Because they decided to go for Ruby.
Yes. So they have this entire thing where the Doctor's worked out that maybe the goblins are responsible for all accidents after he has another accident in Ruby's flat. It goes around trying to fix everything, and then Ruby's like, oh my god, don't forget the baby. And he's like, you did too?
I loved his introduction to Cherry as well.
Oh, yeah.
Where she's just like, who is this young man in my room? Very like Jackie Tyler and everything. And he just goes along with it. He's like, I'll see you in a bit. But yeah, we get that. And then it all goes a bit strange because the cracks start happening, and the Doctor touches on the fact that he's also adopted.
Yeah.
Which was, another, obviously it's a reference to timeless children and everything. And it's happened now. You're just going to have to go over it. There's no going back now. It's just happened.
I know. I can avoid the episode though.
You can get Well, yeah. I mean, that's a given.
Yeah. And then
I think he played that really well. Sorry, I just completely interrupted you there. I think he played that really well because it was really subtle, and he was like, "I'm adopted," and I only found that kind of recently. But it's not. If that would have been one of the other Doctors, it would have been like this big sort of like.
Yeah.
Like weight of the world on their shoulders. Whereas here he sort of comes to terms with it a bit.
Yeah, I think
he still doesn't understand it, but
yeah, I think because of what he said in the end of the giggle to Doctor, it's like, I'm better because you, to Tennant, like you fixed yourself. I'm better because you got fixed.
Yeah. And
I think this is that being shown now, which is really nice. Like he's obviously Tennant's had time to sit down and just chill and whatever, and shoot. He's in a much better place now going forward, which I think is really good for the show.
Yeah, and there's obviously been either some time or there's no sort of post-generation crisis like we had with other Doctors. It's just, he's just straight into it. This is just who the Doctor is. There's none of this like, oh my gosh, I need to sit down for a bit and all that. It's just, And I
Yeah.
quite like that as a change, to be fair. Because it does have a tendency to take up quite a lot of the first story is them just sitting about, whereas in this the Doctor is involved right from the start. Although a bit more subtly behind the scenes at first, he's into it, he's there.
Yeah, it's a bit Rose-like as well from series 1.
Yeah, it's that idea
Yeah.
if he's just...
You see snippets of him for a bit, and you don't. He doesn't get too involved until around the middle of the story, which is nice.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of times where the Doctor is almost holding on to things a little bit too much, considering now he's meant to have got rid of all of this baggage and all that.
Yeah.
But it's still very fresh, I suppose, in a way, because it's still at the start of him being there. But you know what will come of that is yet to be seen.
Yeah.
And there is a scene, obviously. So now Ruby's gone, and
No one's noticed she's gone, mind.
yeah, it's a very alternative idea. I know I had a bit of a go at Mark, well, not a go, but you know what I mean. I like the way that when the Doctor goes out of the flat to look for Ruby and he comes back in, the colours have gone completely cold. There's no colour in that flat anymore. It's very lifeless, it's cold, and it's very uncomfortable. And Carla isn't the fun, happy person we see before. She's just very much like, oh, you know, this baby dumped on me, for God's sake. I only do it when I want a bit of money and everything. And the Doctor's, that really gets to the Doctor because it's what he's been through. Where he's had, there's a parent that doesn't really care, and he's only sort of just in it for their own benefit rather than, and that really gets him, and you can see it. I thought Michelle Green was so good to go from that warm, happy, loving character to this quite cold, quite shut off, but she's still obviously missing something. And the Doctor points out and says, well, if you're fine, why are you crying?
Yeah, and obviously he's crying too, and she points that out to him.
Yeah.
That was just really cool, that scene. And then he's like, he's worked out what the goblins have done, and he's irate at this point, and it's the first like glimpse of angry Doctor for Shooty.
Yeah, but it wasn't like a outwardly shouting angry. It was more like an internalized, like this is happening. What do I do? They've taken her out of time. Blah blah blah. It's not like, you know.
It's more of a calm anger.
Yeah, and that almost is in a way is almost more effective, I think.
Yeah.
Because then he nips back in the TARDIS then, and we get the scene where he saves the day, because obviously they've gone for Ruby. Because obviously they've now gone to get Ruby because there's more of a coincidence around here, and the more the coincidence, the better the baby tastes, which is not a sentence you often say.
No, not one I thought we'd ever say on this channel, to be honest.
No, thanks for that, Russell. So they go back to church, the Doctor's there and saves the day in one of the coolest things I've ever seen by using the gloves to pull the ship back and then just jump off the side of the church and pull the ship literally down and kebab the Goblin King with the church spire on Christmas Day.
That was brilliant.
Doctor Who, everyone.
Doctor Who is great. And then that just leaves one small problem. Baby floating in midair.
Falling to the ground
very quickly. Yeah, wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
Wonderful that he catches it, not wonderful that there's a baby falling to the ground.
Yeah. I have to stress that one very much.
Save.
Thank you.
So yeah, we get that, and the day is basically saved. You know, time is back to normal because Ruby gets taken in by the church on Ruby Road. But there's still this mystery around the stranger, whoever it was that left Ruby, if it's her mother or someone else. And the Doctor sees them, and he sort of, you could see in his face, like, do I go up there or do I just leave it for now? And he goes back in the TARDIS and leaves well alone. Because there's obviously some sort of mystery. Yes,
and it's going to be a very good slow burn, I think, because
yeah,
I'm looking forward to that. But when he does go back, he runs straight into the flat to find Ruby still there, and she's like, oh, I don't know what happened. You were gone all of a sudden?
I love how happy he is just to see her, and there's none of that sort of awkwardness that you've had with other Doctors where they're like, nice one. He's straight, just giving her a hug and everything, you know, he's very happy, and then he just he leaves again, because he's thinking, am I the bad luck? Do I really need to be here?
No, it's because he wants to save Davina McCall.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that, but yeah, sorry. Yeah.
From a Christmas tree.
Davina McCall, who did not die.
No, she did not.
And then there's that sort of contemplation. He speaks to Mrs. Flood, who's Ruby's neighbour, played by Anita Dobson, and he sort of goes back in but doesn't quite take off yet because Ruby puts it all... I love that scene as well where Ruby puts it all together. He's like, how did he know Houdini? Houdini was like way before, and he's gone back to save me, so he's gone back in time. He's a time traveller. What blows her mind? And she goes to the TARDIS and has a bit of a look round and goes inside, but there's none of that sort of like, what is this? It's a TARDIS. There's just that look around, and she says, who are you? I'm the Doctor. Roll credits.
Yeah, and I think we're gonna get that explanation of what is a TARDIS again.
That'll be the first episode of the new series, won't it? But I think it was quite a nice way to finish it. It's just a perfect way of going, this is the show now. This is what you've got.
This is where we're going.
See you in 5 months.
Yes, and then we get a mid-credit scene.
Yeah, the credits don't completely roll.
No, so we go back to Abdul running up to Mrs. Flood, being like, "Oh, Mrs. Flood, did you see the TARDIS? Well, not TARDIS, but did you see that box thing? It was there, and now it isn't." It's just like, well done. That's how a TARDIS works. Well done.
Yeah, but she's sort of, it's quite well done that, because she sort of looks towards Abdul as if she's watching Abdul walk off, and the camera sort of closes, and she looks dead down the camera and said, "Never seen a TARDIS before." So she knows something.
Yes.
She knows something, and she's suspicious.
Yes, please. We've seen loads of theories about who Mrs. Flood could be. If you got any, please put them in the comments down below. Any interesting ones.
None of the boring ones.
Yeah, none of the boring ones like, oh, it's Ruby's mum or...
No. I like to about anyone that's saying she's the Rani or the Master or River Song or Susan, whatever. Keep those to yourself. They've been said millions of times.
Yeah.
Any interesting ones, let us know.
Please.
And there may be a prize.
Yes.
You can have Tom.
No. No, I'm quite happy in South Wales, thank you.
Well, someone might be in South Wales and they can win you as a prize. I'm joking. I'm
We
not
are
watching
not.
off. I'm not doing this.
We're not doing that.
No, so there's obviously we've got mysteries now around who is Ruby's mother, or at least the stranger that left Ruby at the church. Who's Mrs. Flood? Why does she know what a TARDIS is? My theory is that she is someone who knows the Doctor, but the Doctor
Hasn't met her yet.
Yeah, like almost like a River Song type thing, but not River Song.
Yeah.
But not necessarily. I don't think she necessarily knows the Doctor for good reasons. I think she's got a bit of a plan.
Yeah, I have a feeling she is going to be the overall threat for the series. Like every series, like Journey's End had, Russell T Davies loves this. Just throw little seeds of of the big bad in throughout every episode, and then big reveal at the end. They did it with Mr. Vote Saxon throughout Martha's run. You had planets disappearing throughout Donna's run.
Yeah.
Bad Wolf as well with Torchwood. Loads of little things as to what the big bad's going to be, and then you get it.
It's definitely like, it's so big. I could see it might not even be resolved at the end of series 1. It might be, a thing for the second series.
Yeah.
So who knows? We'll just have to wait and see.
But yeah, I reckon Mrs. Flood is big bad.
Yeah.
Could be a new Time Lord threat.
It could be.
It may not, it may be from the same vein as the Rani, but not the Rani.
We could be doing this and it could be someone completely new.
Yeah.
We could all be sitting here putting our clown makeup on saying it's the Rani. It probably isn't.
No.
Because that's not how the Rani would act. She wouldn't be undercover like that. She'd just be straight into things.
Yeah, she'd be straight up trying to destroy everything.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Maybe she's a Dalek. Because, they had that phase where they were human spies for a while with a stalk coming out their head.
Well, you never know. You never know. I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. I think overall it was carried by the performances and the music was great, and there were certain bits that looked fantastic, like the ship and the design of the goblin ship and all that. And the only things that really let it down for me is the fact that the plot is a bit thin and the direction is quite poor in places. And that sort of does drop it for me.
I'll agree with you on that. I'll give it a 7. I absolutely love... No, I just love how light and happy the episode is. It's a very good Christmas episode because you don't want it to be heavy and dark and stuff.
You can't expect the best episode of Doctor Who every single week. It's just not going to happen. There is sometimes you kind of sit down and have a fun little adventure about some goblins kidnapping babies.
Yeah, it was
lots of detail.
It was a very fun episode. It was a really nice way to introduce Ncuti as the Doctor and Millie Gibson as Ruby. Really nice way to introduce the family as well. Cherry finally got her cup of tea as well. We did glaze over that one. That was the real plot of the story. But yeah, it was great.
It's a pretty solid introduction.
Yeah, it's one of the best opening stories for a new Doctor, I think.
It's the best one since the 11th hour for me. But we will see you in a few days' time. Well, probably not even that. By the time this goes out, it'll probably be a day or two. And we're going to have our retrospective review of 2023 as a whole. Not just the episodes, but the whole year, Doctor Who-wise. And, Happy New Year.
Yes.
Basically, that'll be out New Year's Eve or New Year's Day.
Yeah. Make sure as well, if you like these videos, you like and share these around. And any comments you have about anything, mostly about who the hell Mrs. Flood is, please, and all your theories about that, just drop them all down in the comments below.
And thank you to the 2 people that pointed out the grammatical mistake I made in the title of the last video, where I put YOU''RE like some sort of primary school child that hasn't been taught English language yet. I was absolutely embarrassed, and thank you for pointing that out, because I didn't even notice.
Nicely done.
See you in a couple of days.
See you in a couple of days. Ta-da.